Revised orthographic mapping for Tattum reading. Now, initially I brought in orthographic mapping pretty purely. What I'm concerned about was time involvement, and it could have problems at other procedures where you get caught up in procedures and it makes too much time. I've adapted it so it fits smoothly with my program, especially with Zoom. Doesn't take hardly any more time. It's efficient and allows us to finish our lesson in 55 minutes, which is important. See, I'm opposed to anything that's so procedurally involved. The procedure ends up covering too much time. So now for reading, if I'm reading, I call T2. If you ever seen Terminator, Terminator 2 is one of the best movies of all made. We're going to terminate sight word problems. Okay. So we go to my first two columns of my TST, Tattum Sight Word Test, which have the most important sight words for kindergarten, first, and a little bit of second grade. Okay, so I'm going to pop that list up. Okay, here we go. All right, you all see the list, correct? So I check the child's knowledge of the words. Step one. Now what I do is I do these first two. If I'm at kindergarten, first, second, I do these lists, and then I go to the list of 150 in the notebook and check on those. Now here's the difference between my list and the list of 150 that's in the lessons book. The lessons book has the 150 most frequent words that kids will read. But more than half of those play fair, like make, use, them, you know. So my list here are sight words. Okay. So once you do these two lists and you go to the 150, we're making the regular words more or quicker, but we already got the most important sight words already memorized. So we should be able to go to that 150 pretty quickly. And our work with the 150 or work with any list is we time them for reading of the list, and then we do beat the clock with it. So one quick time and then beat the clock. Now let's say a child's starting here and they can do to, here, you, come, was, are, the, into, one, have, ab, noi. All right, so these are our three we're going to start with. We know he's good up to here, right? So I'm going to go to have. So here's what I do. Rather than making cards, I just enlarge the word. Oh, man. There we go. I don't let the child see the word. And I say, everyone do this. Okay. Let's take the word have and let's tap it out. Ready? Take your arm. Have. With me. Again. Now let's look at the word. Does that play fair? Yeah. How about a? Does that play fair? Yeah, it's an a. How about v? Well, that doesn't, but we do know no words end in v, they end ve. This is the hard part. So this is the hard part. Oh, this is right now, I can't do this. But if we have a sheet of paper that I would underline the hard part. Right now I can just blue mark it. That's the hard part of the word, have. Okay, so we'd read it, have, good. Now let's go to the next word. Again, I won't show it to them. Of, everyone tap it out. Now let's look at it. Is what it should be? No, what should be a U, right? So that's what's hard. Of, v should be a what? V. So those are the hard parts of. So we could actually, again, if I have this done on, if I run this off on a word processing, I can actually underline it, or I'll have the child underline. But anyway, these are the two hard parts of. Let's go back and reread this. Have, here's the hard part of. Next one, again, I won't show it. New, everyone, let's tap it out. New, ready? With me. You, new, new. Okay, let's look at it. Plays fair. You, unless I've learned finally you, this is EW, that's doesn't play fair. Should be maybe just a U. That's the hard part. Okay. So we got our three new words. Have, here's our hard part. Of, here's our hard part. And new. Okay. So it's T2. We teach, we tap and teach. Tap and teach. T2. So we quickly tap it out. Then we look at the hard part and we can underline it or point it out or just have the child state it. So I'll have them read it again, have, of, new. Now I'll time them on their 12 words. Ready, go. To, here, you, come, was, are, the, into, one, have, of, new. Good. 25 seconds. Now let's beat your time. They do it again. 15 seconds. That's great. Now quick review those three, and then I move on to reading. 2 minutes or a minute. Much quicker. That fits. That allows us to work it in the plan. Again, notice I'm just using the word list in the lessons book, so it's not causing me additional work. See, what slows us down is when we're pulling for this, we're pulling from that, and we're putting blocks down, and that all is additional work. So this is short and sweet. So I call it T2, tap, and then teach it. My tap is war as example, war, or. Let's look, is what spelled like it should? Yeah, how about or? Well, that's the hard part. If I've taught OR, they'd say, well, it should be an OR. That's the hard part. So we'll swing it. I might come back and review what's the hard part here. Well, the U, the F, and the O. I can always review that. Again, I will often have a separate list for the kids that I'll underline the hard part. Okay, so we'll underline this, or I'll make the note, this is the hard part. War. Okay, war. So we'll usually add 3 words at a time. Once we're through a list, we'll spend some time timing it, then we'll go to 3 more. So we'll usually get these first 2 lists done, which brings us up to second, beginning of third. And then we're going to go to the 150 list and time those. Again, we're only spending 2 minutes on it, really less. A quick time, and then beat it, unless we add 3 words. This does not take much time. That was my concern. All right, now I'm going to go for T3 for spelling. Just one more T. Same thing, we're going to tap, we're going to teach, and then we're going to test it by writing it, okay? So let's go to spelling. Now, spelling word comes here under spelling. Let me get my list. So again, what I was trying to do is if you're in the middle of the lesson, that other involved orthographic mapping took a lot of time. Whereas here you can naturally do it in your lesson. So let's say you're at concept 1. Okay, concept 1. Here's the first 3 words. So you go ahead and give your regular spelling, and then you're going to give them the word A, and guess they can spell A, right? But you say R and they can't spell it. So here's what you're going to do. Make it as big as you want. You can pull it out, but you're going to, again, cover it and say, all right, R. Let's tap it out, everybody. Ready? R. How many taps is that? R. 1 tap. Let's look. Well, it's spelled with an A-R-E. So this really doesn't, really the only thing it should have is maybe an R. So this is what doesn't play fair, the A and the E. Okay, Steve, I now want you to look at that word, and I want you to commit it to memory. You can look up to the right to try and picture it. Now write it, R. Now check. Good job. I've now done orthographic mapping for spelling. I can do that again the next day, but he's cooking. So I then say, okay, we're going to tap out the next word. I'm going to go ahead and hide this. The. Everyone tap it out with me. Ready? The. The. 2 taps. Now let's look at the. I'll highlight it. Does that play fair? Yes. How about Not really. It really should be like a short U. but it shouldn't be an E unless they know a lot about schwa. But even with a schwa, it does. Schwa is used in an unaccented syllable, and this is accent. So it shouldn't be an E. So that's the hard part, is the E, okay? All right, now I want you to take a picture of it, Steve. Look up to the right, see if you can see it. Close your eyes, picture it, now write it. Why am I looking to the right? Because the right goes to the fusiform gyri. Looking up to the right, get a picture, now write it, Great. Now, Steve, let's go ahead and spell both. Spell R, fold your paper, spell R again and great. I'm now going to include those in your spelling. Now, do you see how these approaches of orthographic mapping fit easily into the lesson? It's not a lot of bells and whistles. That's what I'm trying to do. I thought the other one was too procedurally involved, very complicated. It slowed down the lesson. This doesn't slow it. All you got to do is enlarge your screen and you can use the words right. You can also pull the words out separately if you want. I'm just trying to do it easy. When I do a lesson, I like to be able to use my lessons book as much as possible. Okay, so for once I'm at vol tag, for example, once I'm past vol tag, well, let me close on this before I go into the next thing. So the T2 is for reading. We start with the first two columns of the TST, Tattum Sight Word Test, and then from there we move to the 150. You're only timing the list and then beating it. That should take less than a minute. Time the list, then beat it. And then if you add 3 words, it'll take a little longer. You use T2, where you tap out, and then you teach pointing under, and what doesn't play fair, you'll underline it. Then you'll have them read it, and then you'll teach the next. Underline, you have them read both, then teach the next. They read all 3, then you'll time them for the list. Very simple. For spelling, you're going to go right to the rest words here. So the next concept, the rest words are to, do, and was. Well, they're simple. To, ooh, let's look at it. Again, I would enlarge it. I would do this. To, is that how you expect oo to be spelled? No, that's the hard part for spelling. To, look to the right, up, Steve. Get a picture of it, close your eyes. Now write it. Now check, good. Write it again, check, okay? So T2 for reading, T3 for spelling. Now, if you want seat work practice for the spelling, you can do the 1-1-1, the 1-1-2 technique, which is mentioned, where they copy it once, they trace it once, I'm sorry, copy it once, write it with their eyes up to the right, and then write it with their hand. That's called the 1-1-2. Trace, copy, write it with your eyes looking to the right, then close and look at it, then write it. Or you can do it with the 3, you can do it 3 times, 3 trace, 3 copy, 3 where you're doing it with your eyes, and then memory, depending how much practice. But I don't do that when I'm working with the kid. That's seat work if I have a class. In other words, I'd give them a sheet of paper with the sight words. They'd trace it 1 to 3 times. They'd copy it 1 to 3. They'd turn it over and do it from memory. That makes sense? Seat work. But in my workshop, I'm primarily just doing the T3. And if I need to do it, I can do that the next day as well. But it's rapid, it's part of the lesson plan, easy to do. It helps the lesson. See, we got enough stuff in our lesson plan without littering it with a lot of other stuff. And what is the most important part of my lesson plan? Anybody? Reading. Yeah, I don't want anything to take away reading. And that's why I was worried about this until I modified it. Now I'm happy with it. Now, by the way, there's another reason I'm modifying it. The Reading League does not really discuss the word form area problem because they don't primarily work with kids with dyslexia. So they have kids with their word form area firing. Therefore, doing this once will stick with a kid and they can remember it. But our kids, if their word form area is not firing, we can't do that many words anyway until it fires. Does that make sense? Now, I have 2 kids I've worked with a while, and their word form area is now firing. So one of them is reading with me the 4th book of the Hatchet series. And he's also reading a technical book of wiring, sewer systems, construction systems underground. When he reads a word, he remembers it. I don't care what the word is, philosophy, phenomenon, spectacular. Now, he's a kid who couldn't remember anything. He now remembers it. So I didn't have to do a lot of sight word work with him once his word form area was firing. Does that make sense? That's why my whole purpose of my program is to fire the word form area. Now, I have 2 kids in that boat that couldn't remember words, that now when they sound out a word, they remember it the next time. So that's our main goal, is to get that word form area firing. And how do you know it's firing? They sound out a word, they see it again, they remember it regularly. It's firing. Now, Andy, who did the workshop here with me, is still not firing. He still will sound out that word. After a couple times, he'll get it, but it's still not automatic yet. I'm waiting for that to happen. When it happens, I might bring him back on board because it'll be exciting. Whenever the word form area is, have a party. Whenever that fires, that's a big deal. Okay, so the revised orthographic mapping is the fit within my schedule to make it smooth, that allows you to use the word list from the lessons book, just enlarge the words and do it regularly without a lot of bells and whistles. If you want to go more in depth with it, you can go to the more in-depth method, which I've taped earlier, or that's also on the internet. Okay, I've modified it for my system. Questions? Okay, microphone's on and I'm open for any discussion on any issue.